From an assassination attempt to a visit from the king, it has been a very busy week in Washington. And that is where our Heather Yourex-West joins us from now. So Heather, lots to get to this week, but let's begin with the U.S. and Israeli war with Iran. Oil prices hit a 4-year high this week with no sign of progress opening up the Strait of Hormuz. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, that's right. The two sides appear to be at an impasse. A fragile ceasefire remains in place, but very few oil tankers are getting through that critical Middle East shipping route known as the Strait of Hormuz. Under a war power resolution here in the U.S., the president only has 60 days from the start of military action before he needs congressional approval. Well, it has been 60 days as of May 1st. So legally, Trump needs to end the Iran war, which seems unlikely, or make the case to Congress to extend the deadline. Officials within the administration have argued, however, that the ceasefire in effect ended the conflict, or at least should pause the 60-day timeline. So at any rate, most people don't believe that today's deadline will have any consequence on the stalemate or the oil price shock that is now impacting everybody.
All right, Heather, let's move on to the royal visits. We've gone from war now to sort of pomp and circumstance. King Charles and his wife, Queen Camilla, spent 4 days in the U.S. officially to celebrate America's upcoming 250th birthday. But of course, there was a lot at stake when it comes to U.S.-UK relations. Now that the royal couple has returned home, Heather, what's the perception? How did the visit go?
Yeah, it certainly was a big distraction from what's happening in the Middle East. The king and queen were very warmly welcomed by the U.S. president. There was a lot of pomp, a lot of ceremony. We had a rare F-35 fly over the White House and all kinds of military and regalia at a welcoming ceremony at the White House. And then the king went on to Congress, got a lot of laughs, standing ovations before continuing the visit in New York, where the king and queen paid respects to the victims of 9/11 and then continued on to Virginia with a block party to celebrate the upcoming 250th birthday party for the U.S. So it was seen in that regard to be a success. Everything was safe. They were warmly received. Whether that translates to improved relations between the U.S. and the U.K., we'll have to wait and see. The President Trump clearly likes the royal family, but he does not like the British Prime Minister right now. Keir Starmer does not want his country brought into Trump's war with Iran. So whether the royal visit softens some of the animosity between the two leaders, we'll be watching very carefully for any signals there.
And that royal visit almost didn't happen, Heather, because of an attempt on the president's life last weekend. The suspect, Cole Thomas Allen, now faces 3 charges, including attempted assassination. What happens in this case now?
Yeah, so much here happens every day that the White House Correspondents Dinner almost feels like it was weeks ago, but it was just last Saturday night. The president and high-ranking officials had to be evacuated after a gunman charged through a security checkpoint. One Secret Service officer was struck in a bulletproof vest. The suspect, 31-year-old Cole Thomas Allen, is now facing 3 charges, including the most serious, trying to assassinate the president. Now, Allen made his first court appearance this week. He does remain in custody as the investigation continues. We are seeing some evidence. The prosecution just came out with some video just last night where you see an exchange of gunfire. So that investigation continues. A preliminary hearing is scheduled for May 11th.
All right. Also this week, Heather, there was a major Supreme Court ruling that really could have a huge impact on the upcoming midterm elections in favor of Republicans. So tell us more about that.
This was a huge ruling, and we were just seeing the fallout, a flurry of activities in a number of states. 6-3 ruling Wednesday against a 60-year-old civil rights era law that drew voting district lines for an area in Louisiana in a way that favored the election of a black representative to Congress. Now, the conservatives on the Supreme Court called the map an unconstitutional gerrymander. Now, while the ruling impacts one district, the doors have now been opened to redraw lines across the country in a way that would likely hurt Democrat candidates and favor Republicans. Control of the House is up for grabs later this year in midterm elections. Voting about to get underway in primaries in Louisiana was put on pause in response to the ruling as Louisiana looks at redrawing the voting map, and several other states are also moving to try and redraw congressional maps ahead of those midterms. So this could really have wide-ranging impacts.
All right, we'll be watching that one closely. And Heather, former FBI Director James Comey was also back in the news this week. He's been indicted for a second time, accused of threatening the president's life. What more do we know about that?
Yeah, this is also an interesting one. The threat in question came from a now deleted Instagram post of numbers made out of seashells on a beach. The number is 8647. Now, Donald Trump is the 47th president. Well, the meaning of 86 is the subject of a little bit more debate. The president says he understood it to be a mob term meaning to kill someone, while Comey has said he believed the numbers reflected a political message, not a call to violence. So this marks the second indictment against the longtime Trump adversary. The first was tossed earlier this year. The second indictment has been seen by some as a signal that the Department of Justice, after Pam Bondi, that the DOJ has received the message about the president's desire to prosecute his enemies. Though the DOJ pushes back against that assessment, saying instead that it takes all threats seriously.
All right, another busy week, as we said. Thank you so much, Heather, for the update and for the breakdown of all the big headlines. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
That is our Heather Yourex-West reporting from Washington.